Hello there! Today I thought I would do a little bit of a video looking through the classics that I really want to get to. I find that classics are some of these, they're my favourite books to own, but they're often books that I forget to actually get to. But there are so many classics on my shelves that I'm desperate to read. So I'm going to talk you through them, and hopefully I will be reading them soon as well. So starting out, I've got a reread, so it's kind of cheap, but it's a book that I read in two halves over about 2 years, so I would really like to read it in whole. And that is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I started reading this when I was 16 and I loved the first half of it, and for some reason I was in a stage in my life then where I kind of picked books up, put them down and never bothered to pick them back up again, so this was one of them. But when I came back to it at 19, I thought I could remember enough that I would happily pick up where I'd left off, and I did remember what had happened, but I think that very much hindered my enjoyment of the second half, and I really didn't enjoy the second half. Yet I feel like this is a book that I'm really going to love, so I really want to reread this one. I've also bought it in a nice new edition, so that should motivate me, you would think. Then I've also got Sherlock Holmes by Arthur Conan Doyle. I've never read a Sherlock Holmes book, so I bought this beautiful bind-up of a load of the stories, and haven't got to it for some strange reason. I've had it for about 2 years and haven't touched it, so I really need to delve into this one. Even if I take it one story at a time, I just want to experience Sherlock Holmes because I think there's so much reference to it in general culture. I think it'll be really interesting to read. Then I also have Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I have been wanting to read this for a very long time, and I used to have an old copy that belonged to a friend, but that's since gone back to them, so I picked up this beautiful edition that I saw in a bookshop, and I'm hoping to get to this one soon as well. I have it in my head this is going to be really difficult, and I think I've spoken about this before, the fact that I think this is going to be a difficult read, but I still want to give it a go. And again, I think it's one of those classics that's just something that you should read, and I really do want to read it, especially now I got this pretty copy. Then I've got two Virginia Woolf books. I've got To the Lighthouse and The Waves. Now I have read some Virginia Woolf. I've read Orlando, I've read A Room of One's Own and Mrs. Dalloway, but these two are ones that I'm very much excited to get to. I think the reason that I'm reluctant to pick them up is because I kind of had a mixed experience with her. Orlando was okay, but it didn't blow me away. But that was my first Virginia Woolf, and I don't necessarily think that's the best place to start with her. I loved A Room of One's Own. I would say actually that's probably the best place to start if you ask me. And I didn't really love Mrs. Dalloway. I didn't hate it, and I could see why literarily it was a good book, but what made it literarily good didn't make it necessarily the best read. So I'm nervous about picking these up, but I want to because a lot of people say that To the Lighthouse is their favourite book ever, and I know Sophie Carlon read this last year and really adored it, so I'm gonna get round to them. I think they could be the Virginia Woolfs that change the game, I don't know. Then I've also got two Charles Dickens here. I have only read one Charles Dickens before, and that was Great Expectations, which I read last year. I also have Oliver Twist, and I have Our Mutual Friend. The reason that I haven't picked up Oliver Twist is because I've heard it's not the best, and I don't want to go into that as my second Dickens. But we all know that Katie from Books and Things loves Our Mutual Friend, so I'm very excited to get to this one, and I will probably be picking this up soon. I haven't owned it for very long because I've been trying to find a nice edition. Preferably I wanted one like this, but they don't do them. And to be honest, most of the editions were pretty hideous, so I settled for one, and I'm going to read it. Then I have also got Two Beasts, which I will talk about together because I bought them together and they're the same editions, so they seem to go together. And that is War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. Need I say more about why I haven't read this book yet? I have read Anna Karenina, and I actually found that Leo Tolstoy is a lot easier to read than you would expect. His books are big, but they're very fast reads. They're not dense, really. So it should be easy enough, but I still have it in my head that this is going to be a dense read. I watched the BBC series of this last year, and I really just got confused, and I didn't know what was going on by the end of it. But I think that's because watching it, it's harder to keep track of the names, whereas reading it, hopefully it will be. I know my boyfriend tried to read this, and he said it was just overwhelming with the amount of characters that there was. But I still have high hopes. It's War and Peace. It is a classic. It's just big, and I think people get very overwhelmed by big books, and they don't need to, and I shouldn't let myself get overwhelmed, and hopefully I will find a time to pick this up at some point. Then I also have a book that daunts me for some reason, and that is Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. I love the musical of this, and I especially love the film, which prompted me to pick up the book which the film is based on. Obviously the book's going to be really, really different, but I'm intrigued to know more about the history and things, and I think this is going to have a lot of that. Again, it's quite big. It's not the thickest, but it's big enough to be kind of daunting. And again, I just have it in my head that this is going to be a hard read. But again, I think I just need to bite the bullet and get into it. I haven't had this for that long, so I don't feel too bad about the fact that I haven't read it yet, but it's going to get to the point where I'm going to have to pick this one up. And then finally, I have got a bind-up of H.G. Wells. This has in it The Time Machine, The War of the Worlds, and The Island of Dr. Moreau. I have never read H.G. Wells, but I found this little bind-up, and it was pretty enough that I picked it up. It was really cheap in a charity shop. I do want to read The War of the Worlds and The Island of Dr. Moreau. I don't know much about The Time Machine, but that's a bonus as well. Hopefully I will get on with these. I know people seem to have quite a mixed relationship with H.G. Wells, but I thought, again, he's one of those authors that I would like to actually read because he kind of is quite a prominent figure in the genre of science fiction, and you never know, I might absolutely adore him. So those are just a few of the classics that I really want to get to. I have so many others that I could have spoken about here. I've got a load of Iris Murdoch, which I would like to read. I've also got some Somerset Maugham, which I would like to get to. But these are the ones that sort of stand out to me as ones that I really do need to read. So let me know down below what ones that you think I should get to first and whether you've read any. And I will see you next time. Bye!